My name is Drazen Jankovic. You say it differently than you write it, because most keyboards just can't handle the letters. So that's why we were laughing here. The talk for today is basically how are we going to use AI, which is mostly nowadays online used for generating things. How are we actually going to use it to just enhance something? So not so much the generating part, but all of the other aspects, like testing out your code, testing out your end product, and so on. First, a little bit about me. Here we go, I actually fixed this font. So, my name is Drazen Jankovic. I'm 40 years old. I'm a senior tech consultant at ChatGPT, over there. Visit them after. I'm a specialist in accessibility. Welcome. Enough seats, pick spot. In my hobbies, I do cosplay, making Iron Man outfits, things like that. I game a lot, like problematically probably, but you know. And I play disc golf. Basically, you know, sitting too much is bad for your back, so I go in nature and throw plastic everywhere. Whether I'm good at it, not sure. I think I am, but the amount of plastic in water currently is maybe not so. Yeah, today, a little bit of an introduction to accessibility testing, and then we're going to how can we enhance this with AI. Come on in, take a seat. Don't be shy. So first of all, what is accessibility testing? It's basically your way of ensuring that the digital content is usable for everybody. Doesn't matter whether they are busy with something, which is often considered a temporary disability, or whether they are fully disabled with color blindness, blindness, deafness, and so on. Hello? Okay. The reason you do accessibility testing is mostly to focus on the compliance with standards like things like WCAG, which are fairly influenced by local laws and European laws, at least for us. Again, why is it important? Legal requirements. You have the European Accessibility Act. You have in the Netherlands, you have the Wet Digitale Toegankelijkheid, which is like a subset of it, has some extra rules that the European Act doesn't have. In Australia, you have the DDA. They have their own subset of rules. Section 508 from the US has its own rules, so that's why. That's why you do the accessibility test, because most of the testing software you use has the WCAG guidelines included, which cover probably 99%. Like, you should always check your local laws to make sure that you're not missing anything. But yeah, it enhances the user experience for everybody, as I said before. And if you enhance the user experience, you usually expand your entire user base. You can now reach people that you normally would not be able to reach. In the Netherlands, roughly, like permanently disabled people in the Netherlands is roughly 20%, have some form of permanent disability. If you include all of the temporary disabilities, you're looking at 60%. And that seems weird. Like, if you look around here, I don't see 60% disabled. I see glasses over there. Probably 1 in 7 men here has color blindness. 1 in 200 women has migraines every day. And these are all things that break you down. So that's why it's like so many people. Common challenges in accessibility testing. Lots of manual testing, which means manual limitations. It's very time-consuming, very resource-intensive, and you need people that actually know what they're doing. Like, everybody can grab the WCAG list and go through it. That's fine. But then there's those local laws that you're missing in the WCAG that you have to go through. For the Netherlands, language difficulty. That's not in the WCAG, but you have to be of a certain level in language if you want to do things like hospital website, government websites, banking, and so on. Luckily, there's automated tools, but they also have their limitations. They can usually only catch low-hanging fruit. Things that are very easy to pick up. Color contrast. That's just a little mathematical formula. Calculate it, you get it. But it's lacking certain human insights. Putting certain things together, hey, the software will say, Axe often says, your button is perfectly visible to me as code. But once you actually look on the page, it's like, it's a black button with a slightly white border on a black background. Very difficult to see, even though it does seem like it's high contrast. So these are the things where you need some human insight. So you go from your automated tool back again to the manual testing. And it's often missing context. Like, yeah, this Axe or Lighthouse will say, your images have an alt text. Don't know if that text is correct. Like, could be anything. You could just put some lorem ipsum there, and it's fine. So that's why we can step away from it and introduce some AI to it. Help it expand on what it can test and what it cannot test. By adding natural language to it, a lot of natural insights, you can actually start reading the context around your components, and then you can get the test that you're missing from your automated test. I said we won't do any generating, so I will not actually go into code generation and everything, because personally I feel that AI at its current level doesn't generate quality enough code, but it's good at testing. But you could have it generate alt text for your images, headings for your buttons, and so on. Why use it? Conversational understanding of your entire content. It can, if you have a button, it's easy to make an Axe test that says, does this button say buy product? Yes. But what if you're making a design system? Then you don't know what the default text on that button will be. It will change depending on its content. Then you can ask the AI, this is my product. Does this button say buy product? Or this is a booking website. Does it now still say buy product, or does it say book trip, and so on? So you can actually have it based on context, change what it's looking for. So you can break the rigid rules of normal accessibility testing. And it's continuous learning. At the moment, all of the large language models that are out there are learning from whatever users are doing. So if you have applied yourself to OpenAI to use their API, or Gemini for Google, or whatever, every time you send them some code to check, they actually remember what you're doing and send it forward to the others after learning. So yeah. How can you then introduce all of this into your own workflows? Automated pipelines, most software that you use for your build steps and things like that, accept basically any API input, so you could have it part of that and get real-time feedback. You can pair it with your current software. If you're using Axe or Lighthouse or Wave or Playwright or whatever, put it in there as a step and have it come out. Or just run it before every of your tests, run it after, which is a kind of a manual step. But you know, there's more options than just automating everything. Oh, did not animate this one. For today, I'm going to mostly focus on cognitive disabilities. For the demo that you'll see later on code, it's fully focused on grabbing some cognitive disabilities. So what are they? Usually they are disabilities focusing on memory, problem solving, attention, understanding, and so on. Examples, things like dyslexia, ADHD, autism, aging happens, you know. It's good that it happens, but it does take away some of your impact. But also, and I didn't put it here, because there's a lot of debate online. Is this a disability, yes or no? Being a foreigner. And that sounds very weird, like, I'm not disabled because I'm a foreigner. Yes, you are, because you don't understand the language fully. And if you don't understand the language fully, you are disabled from executing all the possible tasks that you need to do for something. So until you are fluent, like speaking C2, reading C2 level, technically speaking, you count as disabled because you're not able to execute all your tasks. But that's a huge debate online. People are actually fighting over this, like, should understanding of text be considered a disability, yes or no? Even, should holding a baby be considered a disability, yes or no? And it basically boils down to people say, yeah, but my baby's crying, I'm distracted, and my tax form is saying I have to fill this in within 15 minutes. So some people say, yeah, then technically you're disabled. You cannot do that in 15 minutes because the baby takes priority. Others are saying, don't have kids. Like, I'm not sure like which one is better as a solution, but you know. How does all of this impact your digital context? Basically, complex text, cannot be understood. I already mentioned a tax form has a lot of different rules and bylaws. It says like, fill in your yearly income. You fill it in. By the way, did you also fill this in and this in and this in? Oh, and if you have an extra job, you have to fill this in. There's a lot of these little things here that makes it super complex. So that's all impacting how much can your brain store in information, how much can it process, and will what you do afterwards, will that be good, yes or no? Another thing that impacts it, immediately what you get is complex forms are being simplified. Complex pages are being simplified. It makes it super inclusive for everybody, and I highly encourage everybody to do it. Like, I've lowered the amount of business jargon I use in my daily life as well, and I notice a lot of people understand me better. If I'm talking to developers, sure, I'll speak with some business jargon because that's part of the environment I'm in. But as soon as a designer or a PO or a business analyst joins, I'm going to adjust my language. I'm not going to use like super high-tech, detailed and everything. No, I'll just switch to something that everybody can understand, something that makes it easier to include everybody so that we're all as a group on the same level of understanding. You can always say, let's split off and we're going to go back to our high-tech talking. But that's the same for everything. No matter what you do, you can always lower the difficulty of language you're using. So, challenges with complex language in web. Already said it. If somebody has a cognitive impact, business jargon, acronyms, so on. Like, I have no idea. When I graduated school, had my first big boy job, and people started using, you use Jira. Like, what the hell is Jira? Or go into Confluence, like, no, that's my phone. That's my desktop. Like, what is Confluence? People were using business jargon immediately to you, and you have no idea what it is. So you feel very fast, very out of place. And a lot of people later in life also develop things like imposter syndrome, because suddenly you know these terms, and when you start talking to people with these terms, they're looking at you like, this person is crazy. Like, what is he talking about? And you feel like you're now again out of place. And it could have all been solved by lowering difficulty of language and so on, like removing some of the business jargon or explaining what it is, explain acronyms and so on. Long sentences and dense paragraphs. Who here has ever used MDN for documentation on web things? Yeah, you've seen how they went from those super big pages into now very small text, short sentences. They figured out people really don't like reading like this much of text just to get to one point that says, you forgot a prop, like add an extra attribute and you're done. Like they actually changed all of their documentation in MDN to more simplified language, less dense paragraph structure, and less long sentences. Because all of that is extra information that you don't need. And ambiguity and lack of clarity happens often. If I say to you, make a button to me, and you come back with a button, I'm like, this is not what I asked for. Why? Well, I wanted red. Okay, you come back with a red button. Again, not what I asked for. Why now? Well, I want it to be this specific color of red. And then you come back, it's still not okay. I want this hover. Like, all of these things, like, you're saying things that are correct, but if you say it, like, combined, it would have cleared up so many issues at the beginning. So these are some of the issues with complex language. Like, even if you simplify certain things, you can still make the total assignment more complex. So you really have to watch out there. And multiple concepts as one, basically overwhelm people with ideas. Just keep bombarding them with information until you see the eyes just go back and you reach your point. This happens so often, so fast. Just go into any meeting where you have two people that are super knowledgeable about the subject, sit in between them and try to follow everything. And you'll feel yourself just leave your body and go somewhere else. So the role of AI in all of this, and how can we help it with simplifying? Have AI analyze your text, ask it, how complex is this? And then based on that, go to your content writers, go to your UX designers, talk about it, simplify it, make a new design for it, or just some new text. Again, like this is so big here. Like AI has natural language processing, so use that to your advantage. Have it process the entire page, identify where you have too many subjects at reaching one point, and have it like, can we split this up? How can we do this better? And again, AI can get you there, but please also really talk to your content developers. They know much more than the AI will do. Those some good things that they can do: shorten sentences for you while retaining the meaning of it. Replace jargon with more commonly understood words. Do watch out. If you ask it for some jargon, it will say like, front-end developer. Cool. What can be a front-end developer? That's a programmer that does things on the front end. It's like you did not simplify it. That just made the word longer. But so there are some things that you still have to manually check afterwards. You can ask it to provide clear descriptions of complex things. So if you really don't know how to change a word or there is no other way of changing it, have it provide an abbreviation description for you and use that. I already mentioned some limitations and considerations. It can miss certain nuances. Complex ideas can be too oversimplified, or they can use their critical meaning or context when simplifying it. And human review is still necessary. If you use any part of the generation, it can mess up. Like hallucination is a thing, shouldn't happen too often, but it can happen. And context matters. APIs are often currently based on data from, I believe at the moment, most of the large language models are using data up to November last year. Everything that happened since, they will have some issues with, so make sure that that is okay. Can this be done manually? Can you check complex languages manually? Short answer, yes. Long answer, yes. But if you want the real long answer, yeah, you just need to calculate the following all on your own. You can calculate the grade level of language used, and you can calculate the CFR, which is the Common European Framework of Reference. This will give you something like an A1 for simple language to C2, which is you need to be native. You can use the following formulas for it, and there's a lot, and they're very complex. If you're into math, they're really fun. Go do it. If you're not into math, don't. That's all I can say. But the most common used for grading is Flesch-Kincaid, and the most common use for CFR is Lexile Framework. The problem is each one of these gives you an approximation of the complexity. So you really need to use all of them and then get a combined answer to actually see what is like roughly the issue. And based on the country you're in, these can give you something that's good, while these will say, no, it's bad. And this is, again, like understanding of language, understanding of local laws. The formulas, they don't know. There's no saying like, in Europe, this is okay, in America, this is okay. But they're okay all the time. It's just whatever the answer is, you have to go over it. And then the big one, of course, ethical considerations, bias and inclusivity. AI is trained on a certain language. It's using a certain language model that's used, which means they will have certain biases. They have found out that ChatGPT, for instance, when used for medical questions, often misdiagnose black people. Why? We don't have enough pictures of skin coloration during certain skin cancers, for instance. So it doesn't know what to do, so it will just go, no, that's a mold, or no, that's this. Like, it doesn't know. So it has a certain bias to whoever made the large language model and whatever data was used. Same with the stereotyping. It might see certain things and say, well, you're in this country, so, you know, this is what's happening to these people. It's like, yeah, that's not what you should be answering. Like, data privacy. If you're using your own data to train a language model to help you understand better in what you can test and how to test, there's privacy concerns because you're using client data often. So you have to go over that, talk with your whoever your local law enforcer is within your company, talk over with them what are the privacy concerns we have to take into account. For a speech about how to include AI into your automated testing, over-reliance on automation. Most people see, hey, I did this test automated, so it's good, right? The test set is good, so let's go. they actually don't go any further into what do these tests actually mean. So you really need to do that yourself. You have to balance a manual test with an automated test to get the correct ethical approaches. And then transparency and accountability. Be transparent to your end user if you're using AI and their data to do all of this. Like, be transparent on what you're doing, be accountable if something goes wrong. If you have used any of the generators to create certain context and you didn't check the context, and there's suddenly a mistake, like you have a product that you're selling for 10 euros, but the generated text says it's actually 7 euros, you have to take accountability for the things that you've done wrong because you skipped certain steps. So really be careful with some of these things. Let's go to the demo, because most of you are developers, I assume. Pop up on my very professional site. Welcome to my local host. Basic page has an image, which is decorative, title, some text, some buttons, and at the bottom here, there's a grid. If we do this with the most common tools, Wave, 0 errors, 0 contrast, 0 alerts. It uses 2 features, 2 structural elements, 2 ARIA. Sounds good. The order, it sees this button, it sees that button. Cool. You can go into further details to see what are the ARIA elements and everything. And if there's any contrasting issues, you can get that here. Perfect. So according to Wave, everything is good. If we go to the other one that's commonly used, which is Lighthouse, the quickest way of doing it is go into your console, Lighthouse, set it to desktop and accessibility, or mobile if you're making mobile apps. We wait a bit for it to analyze. And there we go, 100% accessible, which is good. But then it says, hey, do check these 10 things manually, because I couldn't do them. And then when you look at how many of these rules are actually, it says 10, but just for interactive control and keyboard focusability, that's 25 different WCAG guideline rules that you have to go through. So while it looks simple, and it looks only like, I'm testing one thing, no, you're testing a lot of things that you still have to do manually. But who here can already spot a problem that neither Wave nor Lighthouse detected? And if I run Axe, Axe will also not recognize it. Like if I run this part of Axe in Playwright, it also says, I passed all my tests for should not have automatically detectable accessibility problems. Yeah. It's expecting a page to be in English. It gets lorem ipsum. Doesn't recognize lorem ipsum, but you can read it. It's black text on white, so must be good. So when we then ask, in this case, I'm using ChatGPT. I added it in the API, and I will show you in a moment how. If I ask ChatGPT, hey, is the language level actually okay? It will then send my page to ChatGPT, or actually just the context of it. And when it gets an answer back, did I change the lettering? Or do I not have a connection? Because it should fail. See, this is why you should not demo live code. There we go. It fails. Because it checks out all of the headings. Those are okay, because that's English. They're big, they're readable, they're simple words. But then it comes against lorem ipsum, and it goes like, nah, you need native Latin speaking for this to understand this. So this is where you end up then. You get basically mistakes for something that everything else said it was okay. And most developers, when they see Axe, Wave, and Lighthouse, 3 different softwares say, your page is accessible, they will go like, checking code, I'm done, and go away. If you're working on a design system where somebody else will do the content after you, sure, that's fine. They can then check the content. But if you're also responsible for putting the content into the page, then it's also part of your responsibility to make sure that whatever you got is actually good. If I go to ChatGPT itself, I actually put the text in. I basically gave it all of the text, like what is on this page, and I asked it a simple thing, what CRF level is this, and how to simplify it to B2. It will basically say, hey, it appears to be C1, which is business advanced, just one level below native speaking. To simplify it, change the following things. So like the lorem ipsum that was under one product, many solutions that you see here, lorem ipsum doloris it says, based on what you had as a title and the subtitle, we provide many options to your needs. Things like that. So, and it does the same for everything else. It's looking at the context of everything and then providing you with possible answers. I would still have somebody check this. Like, once again, I cannot iterate that enough. Have it still manually checked because it might think that the context is like that, but it could also grab, you could have accidentally set your entire page that has ads and you send the context of an ad to it and it puts somebody else's ad inside your page. Things like that. Maybe you don't want that. So, how is this then all done? I'll zoom in. Pop up. We're basically doing the things you do normally. You import your test from Playwright. You import Axe Builder if you're using Axe. The only thing that's extra, I'm importing here OpenAI. I'm using their API. You can use any API. You can also use your own language model if you have something running. For now, this is just the example. I provide it with the things it needs. Did I actually show my API key? No. Do the normal tests. I have here one test that's basically, hey, use Axe Builder, analyze the page, make sure nothing is in violation. If it is, break the test. If it isn't, just approve it and continue with the next one. And this is the main test. This is a test where we are actually doing the language checking itself. Normal steps, wait for your page to load, get the content of it. In this case, I'm only asking for the inner text. I could also send here the full DOM or whatever you need. For this demo, we're just checking the text. And then this is the weird one. This actually took quite a lot of time to get, like, which sentence did I exactly need to use for it to provide me with the 2 points of data that I need. Otherwise, it provides you with, like, a story about how we do language testing. It's like, I don't need that. I just want the answer. So the most simple one you can use is analyzing the following text and return the reading grade level and the CFR level. That's it. I tried many things. I tried analyze the page, and it went like, I can't use Axe, okay? Analyze the page for accessibility issues regarding color contrast, and it said, to do that, you need Axe. I cannot use Axe. It's like, so you will have to iterate through this a lot yourself. Find out what do you want to test, and find out what the perfect sentence for it is. When it comes to just the difficulty of language, this is it. Now, why am I asking for both the grade level and CFR? Sometimes grade level can say that this is okay. You can say, like, I want my text to be, if we're using American standards, I want my text to be grade level 12 or lower. And it will say, cool. But that doesn't match up with the European standards. European standards use a different way of calculating things. They use a different way of grading it, actually. So weird. That's like shaking. So that's why I'm asking for both. If one of them fails, I will fail both tests. If both pass, then it's good. For OpenAI, you have the chat completion create. You send out your message. In this case, I, as a user, am sending you a text message, and that text message is the prompt. Use the model. I use this one because it's cheap. Like I think it was like 20 cents for almost 1,000 requests, which I got very fast because I accidentally put something here in a while loop and it just kept bombarding the server until ChatGPT just banned me for a day. So they thought I was hacked. So please take care of that as well. You will then get a response from them back, basically the choices you made. the message, and the content of it. You can also just get the full message body instead of just content. Then you'll also get, if the connection failed, you will get all of the error messages in there as well, and so on. I'm just using content because I want to know these two things. Unfortunately, ChatGPT will never answer with just a number or a letter. It will always try to make a sentence. So I'm using just normal regex to find where it says grade level and CFR level, and then get that as string. Just as a professional developer, whoops. This never happened to anybody else but me. Console logit is very important that you do that. No, I convert then the grade level into numeric because I only want like what is the number so you can calculate. And then you can follow the normal steps in your playwright, Axe, whatever you're using. Follow it with the expect, what does it need to match, and so on. Because I want a range of difficulty levels, I'm having it match. It has to be B2, B1, A2, or A1. If it's anything else, fail. This is the most basic implementation that you need. And this is just for the language settings. So what other things can you do? You can ask it for, if you have images on your website, determine if the text next to the image is correct for it. If not, to break. Because sometimes developers often mark certain images as just decorative, so that Axe or Lighthouse will not complain that you don't have an alt text. Decorative images don't need a text. Often what then happens is somebody sees your code, oh, this works nice, copies it into their project, and the mistake keeps piling up throughout your company or throughout the rest of your project. So with this, you can then say, during testing, if you see an image and it's marked as decorative, check whether the text next to it is actually going about what's on the image. And that way you can check whether it's actually decorative, yes or no. And then break it. Request the user to add an alt text. Same for buttons. Does it have a label? If not, does it have an ARIA label? If not, does it have an ARIA described by? If it does, okay, then it's fine. If it doesn't have any of those, check the context, see whether this button actually needs it, or is it just an icon-only thing, and so on. So you can expand on all of the normal testing that the playwright and so can do, expanded by just breaking that rigidness that they have, expanded by adding more complexity to your tests. So yeah. And if you have any questions, because we actually reached the end, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, X, Instagram, over at the ChatGPT booth. I'm standing there. Promise not to try and convince you. I cannot promise for them. They might still convince you to join our company. We're really fun people. So yeah, if you have any questions, now is also a good time. Otherwise, outside. Cool. Yeah, there's a question over there. Thank you, but there's a question over there.
Yeah, I have one question regarding it. Did you try to use the AI for image processing, because that's probably a lot more tokens? Or?
Yeah, so I would then use the other model that they have, like the 3.5 Turbo is good at images, but mostly generating. But for describing, there's better models that they have. It does use more tokens, and you have to be very specific with what you want it to do. Like if you're just asking it, provide me an alt text for this image, if you don't provide it some context of what that image is for, it will go on a full tirade. It will give you like a life story of the person who's on the image. So you have to be like very specific of it. What I tend to do then is I provided the context of the entire div, like because most of the time what you see is, at least in a lot of business websites, what you see is this. You have an image next to something else. So I will provide it both, and I say, I'm using this alt text, is this correct? And then it can check the context. Or if you don't provide an alt text, generate an alt text based on the image and the context next to it. And you'll get much clearer image descriptions, basically.
Thanks.
Cool. Anything else? Over there? Yeah.
How much flakiness does this introduce in a way?
Yeah.
On top of that, sadly, like a model like ChatGPT, tends to have to be agreeable to you. How do you
So,
go about that?
normally it's indeed very agreeable. If you, I can give you an example of agreeable, something that still bothers me to this day. How many R's in Peter Rabbit? It will say 2. 1 in R, yeah, cool. Then you say, no, it's 7. And it will start agreeing with me that it's 7 after a while. So it will first say, see, indeed, you would indeed find 7 R's. So indeed, ChatGPT, very agreeable to things that you don't want it to agree to. That's why I'm, when doing this, like the example that I gave, ask for things that it has to calculate. It's less flaky at that point, and it's also less agreeable with you. And try not to do too many follow-ups. So if you're testing something, like make each test individual for something. Don't say, like, based on the results of that test, show me this test. Because then it will start after a while agreeing as well. Saying if one test is wrong, then all tests must be wrong, even though the other follow-ups could be correct. So, and that's main part of flakiness. They actually explain on the OpenAI website and the API module how you could do, together with Playwright, do test retries to limit the amount of flakiness. So, yeah.
Yeah, I have the same concern about flakiness, but how to convince your PO to implement this, for example?
It will save time, is usually the main answer.
Flakiness is indeed a concern, but also
yeah. A lot of companies don't have the expertise for content developers. So usually it's the UXers combined with developers that also do the content, like filling in what text should be on a page and everything. Saying to your PO, hey, we don't have anybody who specializes in language. Can we use this to at least check the language level? Already helps a bit. The flakiness is always going to be a problem, but that's also a problem with normal accessibility testing. Really, sometimes your test can fail depending on where Playwright scroll the page, and suddenly a button might be overlapping 2 different backgrounds if you have like a hero border that's floating, for instance. And then it will say, well, no, it failed now. It didn't fail, it's just on a different spot. People still would be able to understand context. So things like that, like flakiness is always a problem with any form of testing, in my opinion. Like, and I know I'll get a lot of testers angry at me. But mostly when it comes to accessibility, I've seen it happen often, like that a test will say correct and then fail. So you could at least go with retries to limit the amount of flakes. If you do like 3 retries with Playwright, gonna cost more because you're using tokens. But on the other hand, you'll get enough answers to see, was this correct, yes or no. But convincing your PO, like, hey, we can save money, or we don't have resources, and then saying, but this will maybe cost a little bit money, difficult. So I would say create a demo page, try some things out. You get a few free tokens anyway if you apply to most of these large language models that have an API. Try it out, do a proof of concept to your PO, and see if it's useful for you, yes or no.
Can you also control the flakiness with the temperature and top piece settings?
You could go fully into, I now provided the most basic configuration for OpenAI, but you could go fully into it and provide everything from your own fine-tuning and everything to limit it, yes. So.
Yeah, but you could make it more conservative and
yeah.
How the path it was going in its answer, for example.
Yeah, you could. Again, the full API has a description on going to every fine-tuned possibility that you can go, and you could limit flakiness through that. But for most people, you won't need it. If you're only testing for things that you can calculate easy, it's just a lot of steps that you need to do to calculate. It will flake almost never. I'm not going to say never, but almost never.
Yeah, but in a Playwright example, for example, you want consistency.
Yeah.
So you want it to be more deterministic.
Yeah. Yeah, then you would have to go fully into providing a big configuration or even your own language model for it to really limit how much flakiness you get and to be fully deterministic. I'm not sure if you want to go into your own language model, because that's a lot of training. But I know with Gemini and with OpenAI things, there's a lot of fine-tuning you can do. And that's going to take a lot of time to fine-tune perfectly. But you could try and do that. So.
Actually, I have a similar question. Like him, but did you also explore the machine learning layer in between rather than using prompts? Because prompt engineering is bringing a biasness to your code.
Yeah.
So it could be like mathematical index, which you shown in previous slide. That will generate results, and on that basis results we will see the accessibility, because that did make more sense.
I'll be very honest with you. I'm not a machine learning expert. I know some of it, and I've trained some of my own large language models, like based on other data. But I cannot answer you that question honestly. Like, what would you do? Personally, I've tried some of the fine tuning. That worked very well for me with the POCs that we did. But you would have to get somebody who's actually an expert on this if you want to go full language.
If I see your code, you use prompts, right?
Yeah.
And that's introducing more biasing.
Yes, definitely. It's introducing my
your data that this is the one which I needed. So you already know your expected output.
Yeah, but that's also because so in this case, what you mean, like I'm telling it to get me the CFR level and the grade level.
26 line, 29 to 32 line.
29 to 30.
Yeah,
This.
So you're already telling him that, okay, this is my prompt, take it up.
Yeah.
So you already know what you expect from this.
Correct.
Rather than testing.
Because in this case, I'm testing for accessibility, and that's a hard-coded value that's provided by the Dutch law in this case. So then I can ask it for, like, according to Dutch law, if you're working on a Dutch government website, for instance, language has to be B2 maximum. So I can then tell it, okay, I'm looking for the CFR level, get me that. So in that case, yes. Normally, prompt biasing would happen very fast indeed, if you do certain things where you don't know what certain answer you want.
Thank you.
All the way in the back.
How are you authenticating the OpenAI API? And is this public or?
No, this is my thing. It's public up to €5, and then it stops. Like,
If I have to do the same thing for a private OpenAI, let's say
yeah.
you are working for a bank or something.
Yeah, if you go to, it's a .com or, let's just do it like this. If you go to OpenAI itself, plop. Don't steal my code, guys, no. If you go into the dashboard here, you can create API keys for your project or for your entire organization, or you as a user. So in this case, I created a test key for just this demo, but I can also create on that level. So it's really up to you what security level you want, where you want to do it. So you get your key for your organization, your key for your project, and your API key for the actual. Do you want only README or read settings, or do you also want read and write? So you have a lot of control here.
Is it also like Entra level? Can it be enabled on the Entra level, pejorative level?
Yeah, could be. I'm not saying if you should, but it could be, yes. So, cool. Anything else? All right. See, here's my secret key. Don't look at it. No. Oh yeah, if people want to see usage, well, it's here anyway. The few tests of just today cost me less than 1 cent, or sorry, less than 0.002 cent. And I think I did like 1,000 tests since last night. So it's really, if one of your manager complains about costs, this should not be it. Like, this is not life-saving costs. All right, thanks for coming, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.